Diego, ¿pueden dar acceso a los alumnos?
Sí, ahí vamos.
¿Todos? Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos. Me da mucho gusto saludarlos a esta mesa de discusión que se denomina Conectivity. Tenemos en realidad unos grandes invitados, ¿sí? Ellos nos visitan desde la Angara, desde Vancouver, ¿ok? Un favor, antes de iniciar les quiero pedir por favor que en el chat coloquen su ID y su nombre, por favor. ¿Ok? Todo esto para poderles pasar asistencia. Por favor, vayan poniendo su ID y su nombre, por favor. Eso es muy importante. Ok. Bueno, voy a presentarles a nuestros invitados. Denme nada más dos segunditos. Ok. Voy a compartir la pantalla. Muy bien. Well, welcome, people. Thank you very much for being here with us. We're very happy to have you here at our Congress, Design Congress at Universidad Anáhuac. I'm going to introduce you. First, we have Tyler Weiss. He's Vice President, Strategic Initiatives of CEA. Then we have Diwakar. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Diwakar. He's Vice President, International Business Development also from CEA. We have Shattuck, Vector 3D Animation from CEA also. And last but not least, we have Bruno Perron. He's President from Class Education. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to talk about our main topic, that it is connectivity. Okay. As I already told you, I'm going to make 4 questions and feel free to answer. Okay. También los alumnos, si quieren ir haciendo preguntas, es válido. Diego y Beatriz, si nos pueden ir apoyando también con la parte de las preguntas, me van avisando. Okay. So our first question is, let me find our questions first. Has to be with production. We would like to hear if you can explain us what is a pipeline in VFX production, and as a result of the current situation and context due to the pandemic, in what way the confinement has modified a traditional production pipeline.
Well, traditionally a production pipeline is the process whereby artists create assets for a film or a production, and basically they pass it along from their department to another department. So for example, a modeler will create an object that'll move into surfacing, where they will create a texture for it. That'll move then, usually it'll split at that point. It'll go to both look dev, which is a subset of lighting, where they sort of design how it looks and renders. And if it's an animated object, it'll then go to like a rigging department where they'll set it up for the animator. So it sort of splits into a little bit of a parallel track. From there, it goes to the animators animate it and return it back to the lighters render it. That goes to the compositors. The pipeline is, as you can see, is not necessarily a straight track. We try to do as much in parallel as we can to gain a speed advantage, but also some interoperability or interaction. So basically the pipeline is kind of like the process of creating an asset and moving it through each department. And then that includes not just the people, but also the tools, the pipeline itself, like the physical pipeline, the hardware that we use, the tools that we use in software, the network itself, or even our rendering software, server software, that kind of stuff, storage. In terms of how that's being affected by the pandemic, a lot of people are now working from home. Some productions have been put on hiatus, so that's slowed things down a little bit for a little while. I'm seeing a lot of productions pick up lately, which is really encouraging. Most of the studios or artists that I'm in contact with, they still seem to be pretty hesitant to bring people back in. They're doing a little bit, they're social distancing within the studios. They're working with like skeletal crews that are on site. But a lot of artists, individual artists, are still working from home. And that's been seemingly working out pretty well, in my opinion, from what I can see. So I haven't seen too many slowdowns. I mean, the production slowed down, so that helps us to keep pace with it because we have to adapt. So our adaptation is speeding up and we're able to increase the speed there a little bit.
As far as the pipeline goes, I think nothing's really changed. I don't think there's been too many adaptations to the pipeline. It's just logging in remotely to a machine that's sitting at the school. So, if your internet connection is good, it's sort of just sitting at your house working as you normally would. I don't think there's been any real differences. Would you say, Chad?
Yeah, from where I'm at, it looks very much the same. The process is very much the same. Probably the biggest change, I think, has been the human interaction. I've seen, initially when everybody came back, when they're like, the people I've watched, like even my wife, who is a compositor, she had some downtime. She got laid off for a little while, and then they brought her back as the productions returned. And the one thing I'm noticing changing over time is how people interact and how they do dailies. Initially, it was we wanted to seemingly to keep it, kind of traditional, where we get everybody together on a call all at once, and give everybody their dailies all at once, so that the entire team would be there to witness it, which is always good. As an animation supervisor, I always think, even though sometimes it eats up people's time where they're idle, it's really good for everybody to kind of see the bigger picture and to be interactive with everybody, even though it can be a little bit dull for artists who are waiting around. I think that's heightened when we're on remote, because then there's even less interaction. There's more people sitting alone in a room, watching the screen. So if they're not interacting, then they're just kind of passively there. So I've noticed that that's kind of, I've seen some clues that it's shifting towards just one-on-one reviews, less scheduling of it. It's more sort of on the fly. I know a lot of, speaking for myself as well, I know a lot of people like the instant sort of feedback of being able to stand up from my desk, walk over to an artist and stand there and say like, hey, we got to solve this and let's brainstorm right there on the spot. Like it's seconds. You can move so fast when you're with a person. So definitely there's a little bit of an interaction slowdown there, and people have talked about it a little bit. But otherwise, I think it's, the process is mostly the same. How it functions is altered a little bit.
And do you think this hiring is slowed down also, hiring people with this pandemic, or it increases? What do you think?
It's definitely shifted. There's been some disruption. Initially, a lot of people were put on hiatus or sent on furlough or even laid off. But then I've seen a lot of people brought back. I did see a lot of people, it's kind of a mix. You'd see a few studios would lay off a bunch of people. It really had to do with the amount of work that they had that was continuing inside the studio. Some production shut down, so that's like an immediate loss of work. Other productions finish off, which is what I've seen. They'll finish out the current production, and then there isn't something new to take its place, so then people are laid off or sent on vacation or whatever is the arrangement that artist has. Lately, I feel like it's slowly picking up in general. I wouldn't get super excited and say like, hey, we're back into it 100%, but it's hopeful. And the big driver in that is we have a lot of studios across the world that, they're affected by it too, and they don't want the downtime because that affects, their filmmaking, that affects their bottom lines. So if they're not making something, then they don't have an income. So if we're not working, that means that the studios aren't making stuff. That means they're hurting. So they're trying to put stuff back into production, and it seems like they're trying to be smart about it. Like at least not in Vancouver, not what I see. I don't see anybody like really rushing and being, reckless or careless with the pandemic. So I would say in general, hopeful, but a little slower than maybe we'd like. Of course, it's never fast enough for artists, but yeah, I see hopefully an increase in productions over the next year for sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Chad. Okay, our next questions. It's an emotional question. Currently, adaptations of 2D animated classics to live action are being brought to the screen. Do you think these adaptations have made a positive connection with the audience? For example, The Lion King.
This is an interesting one. I like this question because I'm old enough to be from the 80s where everything was an actual cartoon. And that is a special place in my heart, especially as an animator. That's what that's what I grew up on. And it's kind of interesting to look at this, not just from technology viewpoint or what can we achieve now that we couldn't achieve then, but also the generational expectations, like what people are exposed to sort of shapes what they're interested in. I still sort of personally love the style and freedom of 2D animation. I love the expression. I love manipulating, like timings and shapes and stuff like that. It's more graphic. It's more I don't know like the exact term, but it can be more designed, I guess, as an artwork. Whereas with something that we're doing where it's photoreal, there's an expectation that's built into that photorealism in terms of the timing. Things have to move. There's less elbow room for artistic interpretation of like physics and style, body shapes. How when the lion talks, can he really talk? Hello, I'm really chewing my words like we would do in a cartoon, like in the 80s, like the original Lion King. There has to be some anatomy there. There has to be some physicality. Skin and muscle and bone are all connected, and we have to respect that as animators because it'll break the illusion and it will actually take something that looks really good and look really strange. So that said, I think the times we live in, people are used to that and they expect that sort of look. They like the hardcore photorealistic, the sort of more tangible, the more tangible look. They like it to feel like it's something that could really exist, which is also, that's kind of a different side that we don't get in the cartoon realm. Cartoons are very exciting as an art form. They're visually exciting. They're fun to design. But when you have realistic stuff or photorealism, it suddenly is closer to you, I guess, as the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's something that you can kind of imagine, like I could turn the corner and there could be a lion there and he could talk to me, like, and this is what he would look like. It's really cool. So I think there's a really strong connection to that cartoons can only do sort of in a more abstract way, if that makes sense. This feels like maybe a little bit more personable or more believable, I suppose. So yeah, I would think generally it's a positive step. It's really fun to see this stuff come alive. Now it's not, I'll tell you a little story. I'm gonna sidetrack for a second. In 2004, 2005, I got to work on Narnia, the first Narnia film, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. And it was the very first experience I had as a VFX artist. And this is Rhythm and Hughes was working on the lion, Aslan. And they were doing a test. I wasn't working on the test. I was working on a separate production. And I heard they were doing tests for it, and I loaded up the DDR to view the tests of the lion. And the first thing I saw was a lion walking down the road, and I was like, oh, that lion, wow, my reaction was, wow, I'm looking at a lion who's walking down the street. And then I was kind of stunned for a minute because I was like, wait a minute, that's the street out in front of our building. I thought they had gotten a lion and shot reference of it and were walking it around the street. And then the third thing I noticed was like, there's a little girl standing next to the lion. And I was kind of shocked for a minute. Yeah. And then I noticed like his feet weren't making perfect contact with the ground. The shadows were a little, and then I noticed all the CG stuff like kind of come through. And this is all the way back in 2005. And that was my first experience as an artist seeing something realistic. And, we'll get desensitized to it over time. We'll know that, and is Iron Man and the Lion King is the Lion King or whatever. But that sensation of reality, that sort of engrossing or all-encompassing sensation experience is really powerful. And it can be a really powerful storytelling tool, I think, because it can bring the audience in. And if they can forget that they're watching a movie for a little bit, that's always our goal, right?
Yeah.
So I think that really can bring people in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I've been watching all of those films again because I have a young daughter, and I think, she's about 5 when the new Lion King came out, and she's probably watched the animated version 100 times. And it's interesting to see as Chad was talking about the audience and what our expectations are, she's always had, well done visual effects in her movies. There's never been anything that's strange. So her expectations of what visual effects are now, I think, are also pushing the visual effects boundaries. You can't go back now, even when she's 5 or she's 6 years old now. So when she looks at a movie that isn't quite up to par as far as visual effects goes. It takes her right out, and she turns around and she'll say, this doesn't look very good. So yeah, it's interesting to see her in this experience, to see, like, you know, the photoreal animals and things like that. It doesn't take her out. She's completely immersed. She even asks sometimes, how did they get the lions to do that? Well, must be trainers somewhere there.
It's really dangerous work.
Yeah, very dangerous.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Lion King, because here in Mexico, that picture didn't have that positive feedback that was expected. Not like the Aladdin version. It was most believable here in Mexico. I don't know, maybe it's the personality of the lions, the hyenas. Here in Mexico, the hyenas was a great success because they how do I say, introduced to Spanish. The Spanish version of the hyenas was excellent, was great. So maybe that was some topic. Okay, next question. It's a technological one. Large productions for the big screen and video games have long been made using motion capture technology. This technology has evolved in a great way, being zero invasive for actors, as shown in director Martin Scorsese's production, The Irishman. Do you think that this type of connectivity that involves actors is considered as an animation technique? And do you think this technology and connectivity will replace the animator's talent?
This is an intense question.
Yes, I know.
Well, especially, you know, I think the newer generations, because they're exposed to this technology like straight away, it's probably less shocking. It's more exciting because, you know, it makes more things possible, which is always good. You know, whether you're quick to embrace it or slow to embrace it, you know, anything that helps us to make cool art, I think is a positive. The sort of not asked question here is how do animators feel about motion capture, right? Because I think a viewer, they don't probably care that much. But as filmmakers, we care a lot because we want more tools to create more easier. We want to make our productions go faster, achieve more. We want to be able to do it faster. We want to envision bigger things. And with motion, what we're talking about in motion capture is fidelity, for one. Realism is a lot of work to achieve, and motion capture actually makes that pretty easy. The other thing it gives us is, you know, believability of motion quickly, so that we can, you know, put something into a shot very rapidly that gets us to that level of believability very quickly. So I think to answer your questions directly, when we're talking about an actor, for motion capturing, mocapping an actor, is it an animation technique? I don't know if I would call it, this becomes like maybe semantics, you know, the language. I don't know an animator that I would call it an animation technique, but I would maybe call it a tool, because our techniques don't really change. You know, we're still judging timing, we're still judging overlap, spacing, arcs, weight, gravity, balance, momentum. We're still judging all of the same things. You know, animation for 100 years has been trying to capture these things. We've been developing our techniques to replicate what we see in reality. So when somebody hands us motion capture, which is reality data, I guess, if you thought of it that way, it's already there. So we're not really adding anything. We're just getting to the motion a little bit easier. So I'd say it's more of a tool than really a technique. In terms of filmmaking, it's definitely a technique. The way I think about it is motion capture is kind of like a photograph of motion. So if you think of a 2D image, if you think of a photograph versus a painting, an artist will use his an animator will use his techniques, you know, the tools and techniques that he knows to recreate what he sees. He'll interpret it, he'll observe it, he'll see it, make some judgments about it, and then he'll say like, well, that looks a little bit blue to me. It's a little cool feeling or cold. This is a little bit warmer feeling, so I'll make this a little bit more on the red side or something like that. He'll have to pick and choose what to highlight and what to draw attention to or what to sort of put into shadow so you're not looking at this area of the picture or something like that. As an animator, we do kind of the same thing. Motion capture can be thought of as like a photograph. We get a photograph, but then as animators, we go and we manipulate it. We might want to bring out a certain part of the performance. We might want to maybe make some of the motion a little bit more pure. If there's like jitter in the motion, we might want to make it smoother, you know, to make it prettier or to make it more readable in camera. So there's some artistic choices that happen along the way. The motion capture, a lot of times when you see, a lot of times motion capture can be captured, brought in, put onto the rig, and it can work fairly well. But a lot of times you have technical issues such as ground contact issues that's just kind of, that's not necessarily an artistic approach, but we want to integrate things into the live action if we're using live action, or even if it's like in a video game or something like that. We want to make sure that it feels like it's connecting with the environment. That's important.
Chad, have you ever gotten mocap data where you just put it in and it's good, done?
Occasionally it gets pretty close. I would never say it was 100%, but I would say a couple times, and literally probably on one, like a couple times I put something in and it's been like 95%. And you're like, man, if I just clean up that one little pop or one little jitter and it takes like 5 minutes or something like that. Yeah, I've had that experience. It's pretty cool.
I think there's a misconception where you just mocap done, artist gets it, animator doesn't have to do anything. It's just ready to go. That I've never seen that happen.
Mhm.
It doesn't. There's two parts to that. One is the technical parts. You know, does the motion capture if we're not doing the actor to hit, a digital copy of himself, most of the time we're doing either the actor to another character that has different anatomical dimensions, or, an actor to a robot, or an actor to a dragon, or an actor who is doing the voice of a robot, and that robot is mocapped by some third person, so nothing matches. Sometimes have to make adjustments for that. There's that as well. And the other thing is sometimes data is getting cleaner as the technology improves, so we're able to utilize it a little bit easier. But in the past, a lot of times we've had to go through a pretty hefty cleanup process. There's been a lot of what we call garbage in the data, which sometimes is cool because it gives it an organic feel that is hard to achieve by hand. But other times it can be very distracting. Like you'll have like these little wobbles or shakes or like pops, or something will twist 180 degrees or something weird like that. So yeah, we definitely have to work on that stuff.
Okay. And going back to the Lion King example, was there any mocap involved in that production?
Lion King. I honestly, I don't recall. I don't recall.
I do an investigation about it and didn't find anything. So I'm asking you.
Yeah, I'm not. We have, in my experience, I've done a variety of motion capture shoots for all kinds of stuff, all the way back to at R&H. We got some. We got a section of, if you remember the movie Happy Feet, where they actually they put motion capture tracking markers onto penguins.
Yeah.
Tried to utilize that. I was only tangentially on it for a very short time, so I didn't really get much experience with that. But over the years, it's become a little bit more powerful. On The Incredible Hulk, we used it a lot, but because he's such a different shaped character, and he's structurally a lot bigger, but he's also a lot heavier, so he moves a little bit different. And when we would apply the motion capture, even when it just dropped in and worked really well, he looked really lightweight. So it wasn't very convincing, your expectation of a giant monster walking around. So there we had to adjust that. A lot of times we would actually put the motion capture on a second Hulk character in 3D and use it as a three-dimensional reference, which is actually really fun and really powerful tool for an animator to see motion and be able to like scrub through it and watch how the weight shifts and the timing of everything. It's really fun.
Yeah, sure. And all this new technology for the Irishman, do you think it's getting, well, it is a little bit expensive. It will be used for future productions, but because I read that it was a total new technology, a 3 or 4 lens camera, correct me if I'm wrong, something like that. Do you think it would be used for future productions?
I can say that I'm not super knowledgeable about it, but what I understand of it, this is like anything in CG, in the CG industry, or any industry really. When we hit upon something that gives us a result that would be very labor intensive otherwise, even if it's expensive, we'll want to leverage that. And this gives Hollywood longevity with their actors. They're really going to want this, you know, because it's like you're not going to have a guy for like 10 years and then suddenly it's like, well, he can't play the action hero anymore because, you know, he's got gray hair and he's got wrinkles and stuff like this.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to preserve this person for, you know, forever maybe. We can bring back people from the dead. You know, this has been talked about for a long time in the industry, the ability to like resurrect, and we're seeing it. You know, look at the last couple of Star Wars films where we're bringing back old characters and we're trying to capture that original actor's presence in the character instead of, you know, saying, okay, this character is now played by a different actor. We really get attached to the accuracy of that particular actor's, you know, physique, and anything that helps them to preserve that. They'll find a way to lower the cost. Like, this is our first iteration on this. They'll find ways to, you know, just like we're seeing on The Mandalorian, where we have like what used to be, we used to be back projection in the 50s and 60s that looked terrible. And then we went to green screen, where suddenly we could integrate, you know, characters photorealistically. And now we're back to a high-tech version of back projection again. So it's like these techniques, we never lose them. We just kind of iterate on them and hopefully make them less expensive over time.
Yeah.
I think the deep fakes are going to be the next thing.
What's that?
Deep fake.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about deep fakes because it's impressive. I don't know if that only works with a low resolution video or something, and why it is not used deep fakes for bigger productions yet.
I think it just hasn't been developed. There are some people doing it, and I've seen some, you know, I've seen some really crazy stuff just by someone at their house, you know, putting, I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger on old Dirty Harry shoulders and things like that. But I think if Chad, you know, what do you think? I think if the studios develop a pipeline technique, you know, I think it's going to be a lot of data entered into a machine, and then, you know, once a visual effects studio gets a hold of that technology and probably builds a tool and, you know, there's a lot of legwork, I would imagine, getting all the data into the machine. But once that happens, I think it's going to, you know, be crazy. At the studio that Chad and I were at, Image Engine, they did Logan as the young Logan.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you know, in the probably the very near future, that type of work that we did there will maybe go away with a type of deep fake. I think that's inevitable.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see characters coming back, as Chad mentions, you know, probably so realistic that it's not going to take you out of the picture at all. The Star Wars was done well, but you could, you know, not 100% perfect, but the deep fake, I think, will fake you out for sure.
Yeah, sure.
You make a good point about the AI stuff. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because there's, we're even seeing it in like, you know, motion simulation and stuff like that. And I think it's inevitable that, you know, the more powerful a tool, the more powerful the computer gets, the AI, as it's able to understand and replicate, you know, weight and stuff like that, you know, for motion, we'll be able to say, like, we'll be able to give it more vague instructions, like have the character walk here, stop and look over here, or maybe we'll have like some grabbers and we'll just pull it and then we'll say, look at this thing, you know, we'll just, like a cat, we'll play with AI and say, look over here, character, and it'll look, and then there'll probably be some process of refinement. But I think like some of the, you know, the basic, will I have to reinvent a walk cycle every time? Probably in 5 to 10 years, I might not have to.
Yeah, and all the nuance of the face, the nuances of the face are going to be just
Little stuff.
spot on, I think,
Yeah.
soon-ish.
Yeah, in to Logan, like you said, I could see, this is me speaking as an artist. I definitely think that just as we get to the level where we as 3D artists are able to crack, making totally convincing, realistic humanoids, then we're going to have the AI come, and that's just going to make the process automated. So we'll achieve it, and then we won't have to really do it the hard way. We'll do it the easy way. We'll let the computer do it, or do a lot of it. But then the interesting thing that happens there is all of that technology is still available to us to make other types of production. So there is the potential, and this is my hope as an artist, that we'll have our photorealistic, deep fake, whatever, we'll resurrect old actors and stuff like that. But hopefully the resources that are freed up from that will then go and make things that the computer isn't replicating. We'll make something, we'll go back to making, cartoons, if you will, maybe literally these cartoons, but stuff, new stuff that we haven't seen, haven't made yet. The Into the Spider-Verse is stylistically, I think, one of the neatest things I've seen come out of CGI. We've been doing a lot of, Pixar, Blue Sky, Disney style films for a while now, and they all look great, and the fidelity is amazing. But to see something take a stylistic shift, like Into the Spider-Verse, and that's just one film. There comes a time where it's like you can do anything that you can dream up. And hopefully we'll get both. We'll get like total photorealism here, and it won't be so hard. And then we'll be able to spend a little bit more time being, inventive and creative. And
yeah, the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
Okay, and our final question. It's about acting. Something you said about the Mandalorian technology. During the Mandalorian production, we have seen the replacement of green screen by LEDs and the 3D system in real time, which gives an immediate connection between the actors and the environment. Does this type of production reduce or increase costs? Do you think that green screens will be no longer necessary in the future? Does it really achieve a better level of acting, or because of the parallax effect, can it distract the actors and make them feel dizzy?
I'm not sure that it's cheaper at the moment. I know that The Mandalorian has a $12 million per episode visual effects budget.
Wow.
There's a lot of work that goes into it for the engine to make sure that the assets inside the inside the environment are, high fidelity, and there's a lot of technological things that have to be in place. So I'm not 100% sure that it's cheaper at the moment. I think it's cheaper for crew. I think you have a lot less crew, and I think that's what's going to happen, especially during this pandemic. You don't have to have so many people on set. You don't have to have people setting up green screens. Even on The Mandalorian, I believe, and other productions I've seen here, the green screen is just instant. So they still use green screen. It's just projected on those screens as well. Yeah, I'm not sure it's cheaper yet. I think it will be.
There is the associated costs as well, in terms of having to pull that green screen and do background matching and stuff like that. I've already heard. I did get to sit on the webinar from ILM, talking with or listening. I didn't talk. Listening to them speak about working with the back projection, and obviously I can only paraphrase. I don't want to speak for them, but it did sound like relighting characters, integrating characters in the composite was, if I were to read between the lines, it sounded like it was a lot more pleasant experience, a lot easier to achieve integration using the screens, which will translate into time and money savings.
Certainly, it would reduce the cost for post-production, right?
Yeah. So I think perhaps what might be happening is we're right now, because it's an early technology, we're just shifting the cost from one area to another. But same thing like with the cameras, like with the Irishman. Eventually, we'll find ways to optimize that and bring the cost down as it becomes, just like we've done with everything we do now. It's like throwing together a team, like on Game of Thrones, throwing together a dragon of that quality is like, 10 people, 15 people, they worked on it for years, but it didn't take a team of hundreds to bring it to life. We're able to achieve more with more powerful technology. So as that, becomes more powerful for, as Unreal Engine becomes more powerful, the artists become more comfortable with it and they know how to optimize it. The hardware becomes cheaper because there's more of it and it's in more use. As the costs come down, it will eventually, I think, save some money.
And I think the Mandalorian is, basically doing the research for the industry as well. I know that season 1, I ended up doing the bids for a company in Vancouver to take our part on, and there was still a lot of unknowns, but I'm interested to see, I think it's October 30th, Mandalorian comes out again. I think they went back and say, hey, let's not shoot it like that again because it was difficult for the compositors, or this may have been, this seemed to be the best way, the most efficient way. Let's try to, maybe frame our shots this way, or maybe have the screens this way. So I think even season 3, which I'm sure there will be, it'll just keep getting better and everybody looks to the Mandalorian. Also, the game engine is also taking cues from, hey, it would be cool if we could have this part of the game engine. And they're adapting the engine to shoot virtually. It's just a matter of time before I think most productions will have some kind of element of that.
Okay. And from your own point of view, which method do you think it's better?
Whichever one gives us the job, I think, is the best.
Sure.
Yeah. Like I said, interpreting what the compositors were saying, it does sound, there's a general preference towards the back projection technology, just because you get so much, you get the lighting from the screens on the actors. There's some integration work that is just made easier, even if there's kind of a trade-off for some of the, the harder things. Like there's probably some rotoing that they have to do because, they're not on a green, or unless they're using the back projection for green, but where they're using it to project the environment. There's probably we're probably going back to old fashioned. I don't know, I'm not a compositor and I haven't worked on this, but I'm assuming that there's probably moments where, because you don't have the character removed from the green screen, that they're probably doing some masking, back to doing masking, roto for integration. If objects pass behind the character, that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, thank you, Tyler. Thank you, chat. Maybe Diwakar had a little technical issues, I hope. Okay, let me see. We have some questions. There he is. Oh, it's already.
I'm here. The masters are speaking. I got nothing to say.
Oh, it's okay. You're most welcome.
They come from the world of animation, visual effects. I mean, you know what? I really don't have much to add to that. These guys are really the masters of the industry here.
Masters of the industry.
Well, that could be the new series right now.
I have
that is the master of the industry.
There you go. No, but I listened in, of course. But happy to help with anything to do with CEA, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can always reach out. Bruno's, of course, online as well. So they can always reach out to us and we can answer more questions about how to come to Canada, to Vancouver, to CEA. All those things we can help with.
Sure. Let me see if we have any questions from our students. Chicos, si tienen preguntas de una vez, vamos a darle unos 8 minutitos, ¿no? ¿Nadie? Okay, we have one. We have one question. This is from Miranda Ordaz. How do you think that the role of the animator has changed has changed today, maybe? Miranda? How do you think the role of the animator has changed?
The role of the animator. I don't feel like it's changed that much. The one thing I would say is what an animator actually does hasn't necessarily changed that much. I think as technology develops, There's a growing expectation for animators to be more technically savvy. I think over the past 10 years, where studios have become very departmentalized and very isolated, that it was very easy to say, I want to be just an animator, and basically spend your time, just in the curve editor, just moving characters and, moving the controls in 3D, just dealing purely in motion. And I'm seeing over the past 5 years of my own experience and watching those around me, I feel like we're being called on to do more and more with fewer and fewer people. And so the technical requirements for that become a little bit more demanding. For example, at Image Engine, we worked on the 2 years I was there, we worked on several different types of pretty exciting characters, such as the aliens for Independence Day, which had a bunch of tentacles coming out of their backs. Mm-hmm. The Power Rangers, in which we had the Zordon face on the pinwall, which was Bryan Cranston's motion captured face driving a pinwall effect. And both of those were kind of very technical solutions. There was an actual simulation that we as animators set up for the tentacles on the aliens for Independence Day. And then dealing with the motion capture ingestion of the face of Bryan Cranston to drive the pinwall effect was also very technical. We're dealing with basically a geometry that is deforming based, it's the motion capture where they put all the dots on the face and then the mesh tries to the mesh. So we didn't have individual controls for his muscles or anything like that. What we did is we had his raw capture, and then we would have to like clean that up or use, do a little bit of blending and stuff like that. So there's some technical aspects to it that I think are increasing, and they're not going to go away as technology becomes more powerful, just like we talk about with the AI and that, AI for whether it's for de-aging or motion capture or these back plates. I can imagine a time where AI will do all of our green screens for us. We'll no longer need roto prep. And because I think an AI will just do it really fast and really easily, because it'll just be able to detect, it's like, is this green? Is this green with hair on it? Like every compositor across the world is going to rejoice when an AI will do green screen hair pull for them. So, looking at the future that way, I think the more technology, the more comfortable you are with the more technical aspects of what we do, the more viable you're going to be as an artist. It's not just performance. That said, the performance part itself is the art part. That's the intangible part. That's the part that lives in our heads and in our hearts. That's the part that you always want to be practicing, so that you can bring that to the production. You can bring your interpretation of motion in a really kind of strong fashion, I guess.
Okay, thanks a lot. Do you think that the animator's job or position is at risk because of all of these technological advances? It has been told that 47% of the jobs will disappear in the future. So do you think animator is one of them?
Maybe.
Well,
it's hard to predict that kind of stuff, because like you always hear, my whole life, I'm in my 40s, my whole life growing up in the 80s and 90s, like, automation, computers were going to take jobs away. And they do take certain jobs away. They make certain jobs easier. Some cases, they actually create jobs that didn't exist, because now we're able to do things we couldn't do before. So seeing into the future for how that's going to work is a little bit difficult to predict. I would say definitely will have an effect. I think it would be foolish to not assume that the more powerful computers become, the more powerful simulations become, the more useful simulation and AI become, the more we're going to want to integrate it. 15 years ago at R&H, we had a ballistics tool for characters, where I could take a character and I could animate him and he could run and jump, and then I could have the ballistics tool calculate his path. And that would give me like a proper curve through space based on his trajectory. It was mathematically correct, more or less. And it was a really neat tool. it didn't take my job away at all. Sometimes I used it to check my work, and other times I was like, well, the client wants something different, so it doesn't matter that the tool was there. So we get into this situation where, yeah, the tools are going to become more powerful, and they're probably going to offset or augment some of what we do, but I don't think it will go away.
Mm-hmm.
And
It will evolve, maybe.
yeah, I think it will hopefully make expression easier for
Yeah.
artists, honestly.
At the time, I think in the early 2000s, I mean, mocap was the same talk, like it's going to take animators' jobs away when mocap finally gets to where it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Never happened.
No. Now we have animators working on mocap.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, now we have animators working on mocap.
Well, Chad, Tyler, thank you very much. I really appreciate all your opinions, your points of view. And now we have Bruno Perron. Okay, I'm going to talk in Spanish. I'm going to tell our students. Chicos, les presento ahora a Bruno Perron. ¿Sí? Él les va a platicar sobre Center for Entertainment Arts. Ok, acuérdense que una vez terminando su licenciatura, ustedes pueden especializar y hay excelentes instituciones como es SEA. Ok, entonces Bruno, bienvenido. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Te dejo el micrófono.
Gracias, Eric, y muchas gracias a toda la Universidad de Anáhuac por invitarnos el día de hoy. La verdad que escuchando, yo no sabiendo mucho de animación y de toda esta industria, escuchando eso en lenguaje hasta cierto punto muy técnico, me encantó y estoy emocionado por ver todo lo que viene en esta industria y los avances, ¿no? Lo que sí les puedo decir es que tanto Canadá, Vancouver, donde nos encontramos nosotros 4 en este momento, y SEA, la escuela líder en este segmento de la educación, están al frente de los avances tecnológicos. Algunos de los mejores estudios del mundo se encuentran aquí en Vancouver y SEA está de una manera muy proactiva integrados con ellos, ¿no? Es decir, profesores de los estudios son, trabajadores de esos estudios son profesores en SEA, que es una escuela postsecundaria aquí en Vancouver. El mismo Chad y Tyler trabajaron en Imagine Engine. Entonces, y hay aquí nada más, Diwakar el otro día me decía que hay como 120 estudios en Vancouver, en la gran región de Vancouver, y el 80% están a 10 a 15 minutos de la escuela. Entonces, imagínense el nivel de integración que tienen con la escuela, y los mismos profesores están enseñando allá. Entonces, y hay speakers que van a dar conferencias en la escuela. Entonces, realmente que es una joya de escuela en esta industria, y en una ciudad, Vancouver, que es una ciudad ya muy importante para la producción. Entonces, eso es lo que les quisimos traer el día de hoy. Este conocimiento a través de expertos en la materia. Y Diwakar y yo pues estamos aquí porque Diwakar es el vicepresidente de la escuela, es el vicepresidente de reclutamiento. Hemos estado trabajando con la Anáhuac desde ya algún tiempo, ¿no? En hacer conocer nuestros programas y también tratando de traer también una oferta interesante a través de panels y prácticas que hemos dado en la Anáhuac, y esperamos que pronto podremos volver a hacerlo en persona. Además que ahorita estamos a distancia por la situación que estamos viviendo, pero esperamos regresar a México para volver a juntarnos, ¿no? y compartir con ustedes. Lo que les quisiéramos comentar es que mucha gente, muchos de ustedes ya conocen Canadá, inclusive a lo mejor conocen Vancouver, pero no sé si saben de los programas que ofrece Canadá, que son muy interesantes para al momento de graduarse, por ejemplo, de la Anáhuac. Cualquier persona que viene aquí a hacer un programa de mínimo 2 años en una institución postsecundaria, es decir, college o universidad, mientras está estudiando, puede trabajar medio tiempo, y este trabajo puede ser perfectamente bien relacionado en la industria, y una escuela como SEA, que tiene tanto enlaces con la industria privada, es muy factible que eso sucede. Entonces les da el gobierno canadiense el derecho de trabajar mientras están estudiando, trabajar medio tiempo, luego trabajar tiempo completo en épocas de vacaciones, puede ser verano o lo que sea, y automáticamente al graduarse de esos programas tienen el derecho también de obtener un permiso laboral hasta por 3 años en Canadá. Y SEA se encarga mucho de hacer esos enlaces con los estudios locales para que los alumnos encuentren trabajo al momento de graduarse. Entonces, en tanto que tienen una tasa de éxito arriba del 90% en este caso, es decir, que el 90% o más de los alumnos encuentran trabajo dentro de los 3 meses que se van graduando. Inclusive muchas veces es desde antes porque estuvieron trabajando medio tiempo en esos estudios. Entonces, creo que eso es una oferta muy, muy interesante y además, como si no fuera suficiente, además que al año que ya uno empieza a trabajar, también ya reúne todo lo necesario pues, para aplicar por la residencia canadiense. Entonces, es la forma que Canadá eligió atraer talento para nuestras industrias, creciendo. Somos líder mundial en ese sentido y por lo mismo estamos atrayendo muchos talentos de todo el mundo. Y SEA es un líder en ese sentido, está trayendo alumnos hoy día desde fácilmente, no sé, 25, 30, 35 países. Diwakar nos puede decir un poco más de eso. Diwakar, the students at SEA right now are coming from how many different countries?
Just over 40 countries right now.
40. I said 25, 30. So, okay. So, entonces, sí, es muy, muy interesante. Y yo les quiero comentar, pues, a través de Eric en la Anáhuac, que nos ha guiado y nos ha acompañado en este largo camino, que esperemos seguir corriendo juntos. Tienen nuestros datos si quieren contactarnos, si están interesados en hacer este tipo de viaje, este tipo de experiencia y quizás inclusive un cambio de vida, ¿no? Porque yo soy un creyente que este tipo de estudios en el extranjero pueden literalmente cambiarte la vida. Desde un punto de vista de tu forma de ver el mundo y cómo interactúas en el mismo, hasta oportunidades de carreras, oportunidades de residencia, oportunidades de vida, ¿no? Entonces, creo que es algo que quiero poner ahí en la mesa. Es algo que yo hice cuando yo salí de mi primera licenciatura en Montreal, Canadá. Me vine a México y volví a estudiar acá en México y me quedé 20 años en México trabajando y viviendo en México. Y es el tipo de cosa que te hace crecer y que realmente te cambia la vida. Te puede diseñar tu carrera. Entonces, eso se los ofrecemos. Y quiero otra vez agradecer la presencia de Eric y de la Anáhuac para permitirnos participar y compartir muchos de esos conocimientos con ustedes el día de hoy. Diwakar, I mentioned the importance of studying abroad and the pathway to working and permanent residence. Is there anything you'd like to add about CEA, maybe about your next intakes and the fact that Canada just reopened its door? Well, on October 20th, we are reopening the frontier of Canada for international students. So maybe we can touch upon that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as everybody knows, I mean, we've gone through this whole COVID period where Canada has been shut for a lot of different visitors coming into Canada. But now, of course, October 20th comes around. Canada will be open to particularly students, so they can come right back into Canada and then attend various different institutions here who have a readiness plan. And Langara CEA is a public institution here in Vancouver, which is ready to accept students coming into the country. So we will definitely assist you with that. So if you're looking at, moving from an institution in Mexico over to us in Vancouver, we are of course a great choice for 3D animation, visual effects, and game development programs. So that's really cool. The one big advantage with our programs is that since we are a public institution, I think Bruno already covered this, we offer a 3-year work permit, so postgraduate work permit eligibility. So students can come in, take our programs, graduate from our programs, and then go on and work in the industry here with our postgraduate work permit. Now, students who are coming from an amazing institutions such as Anáhuac, and many students have already come to us at this point, they are also eligible for a really awesome scholarship. So we have a scholarship program as well that we offer students who are coming to us with a background in animation, visual effects, or game development. They can apply for that scholarship. Those scholarships range anywhere between $6,000 to $20,000, which is available to students. So you can definitely sort of partake in that, apply for those scholarships when you do apply for our program as well. So it's a really amazing opportunity for students to save money by being with us through a scholarship opportunity. And of course, if you're looking to set up a career like Tyler or Chad here, who are in the industry here in Vancouver, you can have the same through the work permit opportunity. The work permit opportunity also turns into a permanent residency opportunity for you as a student who wants to maybe settle down in Canada permanently. So that opportunity is also available to you here. And we can obviously talk about that too, how that works, how that figures out. But of course, Bruno will be able to guide you more with that too. So lots of different opportunities open to you, scholarship, coming in, working here, and then of course settling down permanently in Canada. But again, as Bruno says, we are a leader in the programs of animation, visual effects, and game development. So it's a very, very good choice for those who are looking to come to Vancouver with an amazing industry here in Vancouver as well. So yeah, please do reach out. We're happy to help more in details individually. You have your portfolios. Do share with us. We are happy to comment on that. And then Tyler, Chad, and other faculty members will take a look at your portfolios as well and guide us further. Great. That's pretty much all I have to add, Bruno. But obviously, once students start looking at our programs more carefully, we can guide them one-on-one as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Diwakar. Así es. Entonces, si los que están interesados, ahí están los datos donde contactarnos, donde iniciar el contacto. Nosotros podemos perfectamente bien armar una llamada Zoom con alguien de SEA para hablar más de los programas o con un asesor de clase en México. Tenemos oficina a lo largo del país y también en Canadá. Entonces, estamos aquí para participar en ese proceso de toma de decisión, de darles información que les puede ayudar a tomar esta misma decisión, y nos encantaría ser parte de esta historia, ¿no? de este proyecto de ir a estudiar a Canadá, desde elegir el programa en la institución, ir viendo los procesos de su visa, de estudio de trabajo, dónde van a vivir cuando llegan a Canadá, el seguro médico, toda la coordinación que va relacionada con ese viaje. Estamos aquí nosotros para acompañarlos. Ofrecemos un servicio llave en mano o all inclusive, como decimos en inglés. En un solo lugar pueden encontrar todas las respuestas a todas sus inquietudes y los acompañamos en este viaje. A eso nos dedicamos desde ya más de 26 años y hoy día hemos enviado más de 10,000 alumnos mexicanos a estudiar a Canadá. Entonces, ya nos la sabemos un poquito, sabemos los trucos, tenemos relaciones muy fuertes con las escuelas y les podemos dar muchos servicios desde antes, durante y después de sus estudios en Canadá, incluyendo aplicando para su visa de trabajo después y eventualmente quizás por la residencia permanente en Canadá. Muy bien, pues con eso es lo que queríamos compartir con ustedes el día de hoy, Eric. Cualquier otra pregunta o ahí nos pueden contactar, nos pueden mandar un correo y rápidamente estaremos en contacto con ustedes. Otra vez, muchísimas gracias, Eric, y gracias a la NAWAC por la oportunidad del día de hoy.
No, Bruno, gracias a ustedes. Thank you very much, all of you. It's a great pleasure that you be part of this Congress. Cualquier duda, chicos, que tengan con respecto a SEA, me pueden escribir. Ya todos tienen mi correo. Yo los canalizo con Bruno, no hay ningún problema. Y considero que esta es una gran oportunidad, una vez que ustedes ya se gradúen de la licenciatura y quieran especializarse en alguna de las disciplinas. Son cuatro áreas, 4 programas, ¿verdad, Bruno? Si no me equivoco.
Correcto.
De SEA, uno de estos 4 programas, pues nos ponemos a chambear y a la manera de que Bruno nos apoye y que se vayan allá a Canadá a continuar sus estudios, ¿sale? Well, guys, thank you very much again. We learned a lot today from you. Okay, I hope to see you here at the Universidad de Anáhuac, Mexico. This is your home, so we can meet in person. Okay, and gracias, chicos, muy amables. Si ya no hay ninguna otra duda, los vemos en la siguiente mesa de discusión o Design Talk. Okay, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gracias otra vez. Buen día a todos. Saludos a México.
Gracias.
Bye bye. Entonces, Bruno, cualquier interesado, te lo canalizo.
Encantado, yo estoy aquí, creo que ya tienen mis datos. Si no, a través de ti siempre se pueden comunicar. Y si quieren que hagamos una videollamada, les mandamos información de los programas, de cotizaciones, estamos aquí para apoyarlos, encantados.
Claro que sí. Y a ver si el siguiente semestre, pues ya tenemos autorizado por parte del gobierno aquí poder realizar eventos físicamente, ¿no? Y a ver
Sí,
si...
no. Nos urge volver a vernos, nos urge viajar otra vez, nos urge, compartir de esta forma está bien, pero son pantallitas así que vemos y no es lo mismo, ¿no? Entonces, encantado. Ojalá sea el próximo semestre, no solo el próximo año, pero estaremos al pendiente cuando se pueda, con mucho gusto.
Sí, ya me urge dar una visita por allá a SEA a ver qué tal está.
Ya te tardaste, ¿eh? Has sido invitado.
Yo sé. Bruno, pues muchas gracias, por todo, en verdad. Luego les hago llegar un reconocimiento a todos ustedes por parte de la universidad.
Muchas gracias.
Y seguimos en contacto, Bruno. Te mando un abrazo.
Igualmente, buen día a todos. Hasta luego.
Bye.